Hello and welcome to the MyClayCo studio. My name is Carla and today we are going to be making stud earrings using bezel posts. Now there are a couple of different types of bezels. So I'll first go through the differences between bezels and then the ones that we are going to be using today. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to actually create with them using unbaked and baked polymer clay and different ways to seal them to make sure that they're super secure. All right, we got a lot to cover today, so let's get into it. All right, so let's get into the difference between bezels. So there are open bezels and there are closed bezels. Open bezels are the ones that are just kind of like a ring and you can add them onto your polymer clay pieces. Tegan has done a tutorial on how to use these with your polymer clay pieces. So I'll drop a link in the description and also a video at the end of this video so that you can watch that one if you would like to learn more about open bezels. The ones we are using today are called closed back bezels. These are because they have that ring around them, but they actually also have metal along the back to fully enclose them. This is why they are closed bezels. So these ones are really great for actually embedding clay into them so that you get that really nice metal ring, but the back isn't polymer clay, it is metal. And then lucky for us, they also have a metal post attached to that metal back. So we don't even need to think about attaching posts to the back of them. So now that we know the difference between the two and that we're going to be using the closed back bezel stud posts today, I know it's a mouthful, I think we should get into making because I'm going to show you how to use it with unbaked and baked polymer clay pieces and a couple of different ways to seal them so they're nice and secure. Tegan and I have been busy and we've made a couple of either squish logs or faux stone kind of effects. So I have some of our scraps here that I'm going to be using in the video today. And I also have an assortment of bezel stud posts. So I'm going to do unbaked clay first in a variety of these bezel posts. And then I'll show you how to do baked clay. So for the first one I'm going to actually use an 18mm cutter because I have an 18mm bezel post. So this one, you can cut it out, stick it in, and then we've got a post and it's all done. So what I will say is that the clay that you're going to use, you want it to be just a little bit thicker than what the rim of your bezel post is. Now this is because once we actually put the unbaked clay in, we're actually going to squish it down. So I'll just zoom the camera in here. And I don't know if you can see here, but the edges slightly taper out. So they're narrower up the top and then they taper out. This is what you want in a bezel post because it means that when we put the clay in, we can actually press it in and the clay will squish out into these wider lower parts. And that is what's going to keep our clay piece from falling out. So you can actually fully embed this without having to take it out and re-glue it or anything like that. But it's only with certain types of bezel posts. This one is our minimalist bezel stud post, and it's great for if you just want to use polymer clay. So to get into making, I'm first just going to cut out some 18mm circles. And it doesn't matter that I haven't burnished it because I'm just going to press them out anyway. So there we go, I've got one. And now I'm going to try and get one with matching colours. Okay, so now that I've got both of my pieces, I'm just going to pop them in. And as you can see, because I've got an 18mm cutter, it's quite easy to get that one in. And you just want to systematically press around the edges until you can see you don't have any raised edges. So you can see it's quite flat. But then what we're going to do is we're actually going to flatten this piece because it will also help seal up some of these bits. So the way that we flatten the piece is that we just get a piece of paper and all I'm going to be doing is pressing down and then you can just release it from the paper. And as you can see here, it has flattened that surface. We do have a little bit of clay along the edges, so you can just run your finger around that to clean it up. But otherwise, that is a fully embedded clay piece because it will have squished down into these lower parts now. So that just has to go in the oven to bake. Okay, so onto our second one. I'm going to show you now how to do it not with a cutter. So I've got some 14mm bezel posts here. So if I didn't have a 14mm cutter, I'll show you how we can do it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bezel post and I'm just going to stamp it in so that I get a rough outline of a circle. And I'll do the same with my second piece. I'm just trying to find a good area. Maybe I will do that. Oh, probably too blue. Okay, let's try and find some with more green. That'll do. Then all I do is I take a craft knife and I'm just going to trace around the edges. Okay, so we've got two options from here. Our first option is we can bake these pieces and then we can sand these edges after they're baked so that we can clean them up a little bit more. The other thing that I have seen people do is actually slice the top off after they've pressed their clay in. So I'm going to really firmly press this in and then I'm going to grab a tissue blade and just slice across the top. You just want to be mindful that this technique might not work if you want to keep the top of your design. Let's say if you put a transfer over the top, but if you're doing something like these faux stone type clay pieces, then it doesn't really matter what you're going to slice back, and so it will work great for this kind of thing. It also works really great for if you need to actually make just a plain colored base and then put things on top of it like florals. If you did want me to do a floral bezel stud post tutorial with 3D flowers, just let me know in the comments below because that's definitely something that I could put together for you guys. So this last unbaked clay one is a little bit different because I am going to be using our 8mm rimmed bezel with an 8mm cabochon. Now a cabochon is like a little glass bead that has a flat bottom. And these are actually great for putting in a matching size bezel, and it creates like a faux resin dome over the top and can really elevate your piece. So I actually really enjoy using these for little bits of clay that are a bit scrappy. So this, although it's pretty, I'm not going to be able to make full earrings out of it. So what I do instead is I can press it into these bezels and put a cabochon on top. So one thing I have learned from doing this technique is that you want to press it out quite thin, and you can do this with a roller or just with your finger. It doesn't matter because we're going to further squish it. And then you take a cutter that is smaller than what your bezel is. So this is an 8mm bezel, and I would say this is about a 5 pushing 6mm, it's probably closer to a 5mm micro circle cutter tool. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little circle and pick that one up. As I said, it's quite thin because we don't need much clay in this one. And I'm just going to pop that into the center of my bezel. And as you can see, it doesn't go all the way to the edge, but that's completely fine because what we're going to do is we're going to flatten it when we press our cabochon in. So I put my cabochon in. And as you can see here, you already can't see that it's not all the way to the edges because of the way that the glass dome is. But all I want to do is to really push that one in. I'm just going to turn it upside down and press. And that pushes my cabochon further in, and it does press that clay out further to the edges, and you can see those gold sparkles through the glass. And I'm actually just going to bake it like this. Now they are quite difficult to pop the glass cabochons off once they're baked like this, but I will also show you removing them and securing them with some glue as well. So I have my unbaked clay pieces ready to go in the oven, but what I am going to do is just cut out some extra pieces so that I can bake them at the same time, because I will show you how to put baked clay into bezel posts. For baked clay into bezel posts, you do need to make sure that you have a cutter that is the same size as your bezel post. So if your bezel post is an 18mm, you want to make sure your cutter is an 18mm. One thing I did want to mention is that because we're not going to be pressing them in like we did the unbaked clay, you might want to roll out your clay a little bit thinner so that they're going to sit flush in your bezel pieces. In terms of baking our posts, because they do have the post attachment on them, we can't just sit them nicely on a tile. So we do have to think about how to actually bake the pieces when they have the post already on them. So there are two different ways that you can do this. The first way is my preferred method, and it's using one of these wooden blocks that has the holes. So all you do is you put your clay piece in it, that has a post attached to it, and you can actually bake everything on this piece of wood. So you just pop this piece of wood in the oven and it will bake your polymer clay pieces as normal. You just want to make sure that when you get these, that they are able to be baked in your oven. Some woods are not good in the oven and cannot be baked. I'll pop a link to this product because we do sell these on our website. The other option that you have if you didn't want to purchase something is you can actually get a bowl of uncooked rice. Now, uncooked rice means that you can actually sit these posts in and it will bake, and you can just reuse that rice time after time. You can see it's a little bit toasty because we've used it so much. But yeah, this is a great option for if you have odd shaped things or anything with a post on the back. Just pop it into the rice and you can bake that as is. I finished baking my pieces and I have let them cool. So I'm just going to take up these ones. This is the one that we cut out the circle, put them in, and then pressed them down so that they secure them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move around, and you can see here I'm pulling it, and that's as far as it goes because it's stuck in there from the other side. So even though it does have some movement in it, it's fully embedded and it's not going to come out at all. So it would be quite an effort to actually try and get this one out. So those ones don't technically need any sealing because they're fully embedded. Same with these other ones that we fully squished in and then sliced the top off. You can see the difference in profiles of these two. So this one, we kept it slightly above the bezel, and this one is flush with the bezel because we use that blade. Now here, there isn't anywhere for me to be able to grab to try and pull from, and I know it's fully embedded in here because we squished it in here. So that one isn't going anywhere either. These other ones that we did with the cabochons, now these ones stick on pretty solid. And as you can see here, I've just managed to snap that off just by forcing it. It does actually leave this really nice glossy shimmer. So you could use a cabochon to embed that and just give it that really nice shine. But if you did want to put it back, I would then put glue. So what I am going to do is just get a little bit of glue. Now I do normally like this one, but unfortunately I've just realized that I've run out. So I have got some of my Gorilla Glue. What I will say with this gluing it under the cabochon, because you are going to see the glue, yes, glue is transparent. However, some glues do bloom in certain environments. So you just want to make sure that you're testing for your environment what glues will work. And I'm just doing a really thin layer and then I'm putting the cabochon back in, and you want to make sure that you're not getting any air pockets in that glue. And you clean up any edges if you had any glue overflow. And that there is now glued onto our polymer clay piece within the metal bezel. So that isn't going anywhere. So that is a fully completed earring along with these other ones. Now we have to get onto our baked pieces and how we actually incorporate these into bezels. So if I was to take my baked piece and pop it into my bezel, you can see here that it does fit in, but there is a little bit of wiggle room. So even though it won't fall out if I'm shaking it or anything like that, if I pull it out, it does come out. So the easiest way is to put a little bit of super glue here and glue this piece in. So that's all I'm going to do. Just take a bit of this glue and pop that one in. And that one is now nice and secure and it's not going to go anywhere. Again, if you have any glue overflow, you just want to clean that one up before it dries. And then to doubly secure this one, I'm actually going to pop a resin dome over this as well. Now, if you didn't want to do a resin dome, you can also use liquid polymer clay that is clear. However, you won't want to put your glue in because we will need to rebake it. So I'm actually going to do that with these pieces. So these ones to get in, you can see my shapes are a little bit funky just because I had left my faux stone sitting out for a little bit too long, so it kind of went a bit hard. But all you want to do is, again, try and get this one in. And you can actually, the good thing about polymer clay is that it's flexible. So this is the end where it's not going in. So I can either slightly sand that down or I can just firmly press in. See, it's just trying to go over that edge there. So let's press it in. Okay, I felt that one pop. All right, so this one now is fully in. Now that was very, very firm for me to get it in. So that will actually be quite secure and it will be very difficult for me to actually take that piece out. But I am going to put some clear liquid clay over the top of this just to make sure that it's nice and sealed, because I do have some kind of bumpiness from that paint as well on these ones. For these ones here, I'm going to apply just a little bit of clear liquid clay. And so all I'm going to do is grab a bit and just pop it on top. Now it doesn't have to be a really thick layer because this is just kind of acting as like a sealant. And you could probably do this with a paintbrush or something. I've just got our little DAS spatula, so I'm going to pop it on with this. And then because it is liquid clay, we do need to rebake it after this. So now that I've covered those with a really thin layer of that clear liquid clay, I'm just going to pop them in the oven to rebake those, and then we'll get onto resining the other pieces. And this is what our piece looks like after we've baked it with that clear liquid clay on top. So as you can see, it's really nice and flat on the top. It is a matte finish, so if you did want it to be glossy, you would have to put a like glaze or a varnish over the top of it. But in comparison to the original one, it hasn't really dulled it much putting the clear liquid clay over the top. So it's a really great alternative if you wanted a matte finish, or if you just wanted to put some kind of doming over the top that isn't a resin. Yeah, I just think it's a really, really good alternative for some of the other sealants that you can put on. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and that hopefully some of my tips and tricks will help you with your polymer clay creations, not just with bezel stud posts, but with your other makes. If you did enjoy the video today, we would love for you to like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if there were any questions or comments about the video today, you can pop a comment down below. And yes, let me know if you want me to do a bezel post floral tutorial. We will see you next time. Bye.